And welcome back to the show. Well, we've got something very different on the show at the moment because Rolling Stone Australia and New Zealand have just unveiled a list of 50 living icons from across the genres of screen, music, and comedy in a very special collector's edition. And we thought we would actually get the Brag editor-in-chief, Poppy Reid, on the show to chat a little bit about this amazing list that has been able to be put together. Welcome to the show, Poppy.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. Now, Poppy, tell us a little bit about this list, because this seems like an almost impossible list to pull off, but 50 living icons of music, screen, and comedy. Tell us a little bit about this list and where the idea came from.
It was, I love that you said it's like an impossible thing to pull off, because it really did feel like that at times. You know, Rolling Stone is very much known for its lists, you know, whether it's the 50 greatest Australian artists of all time that we did, or the 100 greatest movies of all time that we also did. It's known for kind of anointing the best of the best, and ranking them as well. So usually a Rolling Stone list is 1 to 500 or 1 to 50, as we've done, and this is the first time that we've done an unranked list on Australia and Aotearoa icons. But when we first came to this, we thought, what actually makes an icon? That was the hardest thing for us to decide on, because it's not just about talent, it's about enduring influence and charisma that you sometimes kind of put your finger on. But we did come back to a criteria through all of our debates and arguments and all of that. It always came back to consistent relevancy, innovation, accolades, and global influence in culture. So that was our North Star when we had all these debates. And then, of course, we had a judging panel made up of our internal team, plus industry experts as well, and so they added their insights and thoughts, but under the cover of anonymity. And the reason why we did that was so that we could ensure their independence, and they would be obviously as independent as possible and not pushing for anyone that they were tied to, and be as forthcoming as possible with who they felt really deserved to be given that icon status. So, you know, it was tough to put together. You know, 50 does seem like a lot, but when you think of the effect that a lot of Aussies and Kiwis have had on screen across TV and film, plus the music industry, plus the comedy sector, it was not an easy task.
Now, I've found when we do our lists on our show that there's only 4 of us involved with this show, and when we do our lists, quite often they will be very, very varied. It's very rare that we double up when we are talking about top 10 horror films or something like that. Do you find that there was a lot of debate and a lot of names thrown into the ring, and then you had to narrow it down to 50?
Oh my gosh, there was arguments. We met over Zoom. We met at pubs. We met at music industry conferences, both here and in America. There was multiple email chains, Slack conversations that seemed to go on for days, and all were really trying to battle for that certain icon, but trying to use the criteria. But because we had quite a robust criteria, it was quite clear in the end. And then, you know, we just kind of went with the majority as well. You know, if multiple people felt like a certain icon shouldn't make the list and they made their case for it, and then many others on that panel agreed with them, we just had to go with that. There's a few people who I really had hoped would make the list but didn't go in. People like Lorde, I thought that, you know, she would be such a great representative for the the Kiwi music industry, I should say. Don Walker from Cold Chisel, he made my long list. Joel Edgerton, the actor and filmmaker, made my long list, and Isla Fisher as well, the actress. I think she's done amazing things for comedy. And yeah, it was so tough. There was definitely a lot of arguments, but thank God we had a very watertight criteria to come back to.
Were there anyone that made the list that really surprised you?
It was more about who didn't make the list that surprised me. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, 50 icons to me, it might seem to a lot of people like a big list, but I'm so proud of the industries that we have in the arts across Australia and Aotearoa. So for me, everyone that made the list, no surprise to me, but it was more the people that didn't make the list. I will say, though, that Chris Lilly was a slight surprise to me. I'm very aware of the impact that he has had on the music industry. On the comedy industry, I'll say, and pop culture as well. It's kind of undeniable, like he's bulldozed down barriers. He's been one of the biggest success stories for Australian comedy of the 21st century. Until he wasn't. Like, obviously, he's had controversy around that. So, Chris Lilly didn't make my personal list. However, I look at his influence and impact on pop culture, and I see it as extremely significant. And we honoured that, and I'm actually really proud that we honoured that.
Yeah, definitely. That was a question I was going to ask you. I was just waiting for a nice way to put it. But we have a lot of icons in Australia that, unfortunately, over the years have either done things themselves that have led them being cancelled, or just the way culture has changed. Was that something that you considered when you sat down to work on this list?
You always look at the positive impact that they have had on culture. Yeah. And so for Chris Lilly, it was definitely undeniable, that influence that he had. And he is one of our biggest success stories. But absolutely, we definitely look at someone's track record. I think there's a bigger conversation here, which might not be able to fit in this chat that we're having, around cancel culture as a whole, and whether that benefits or is detrimental to society. But I don't know if we have time to really go into the layered depths that would need to go into in order to really unpack that. But we absolutely looked at people's track record and positive influence on culture. That was definitely part of the criteria.
Awesome. So if our listeners out there want to grab a copy of this special collector's edition, where can they go to grab a copy of Rolling Stone these days?
I think the easiest spot to get it, if you're in Australia, is your local Coles. It's stocked there, or your local newsagents. If you're in New Zealand, your local newsagents should have it. But if you want to subscribe, head to the Rolling Stone website, au.rollingstone.com, and you can subscribe to the magazine, and you can get a couple of back issues as well. Our last issue had Troye Sivan on the cover, which was a great shoot to do. But I really would encourage people to go and see the physical copy rather than the stuff when it goes online next month and at the end of this month, because it has a beautiful cover illustration by an ARIA award-winning illustrator, Dave Homer, and we've gone gold for the embellishment as well. And I've got a couple sitting with me now, and I'm like, this is something that I feel I'm very proud to keep on my coffee table at home, and I've had some feedback from other people saying that it feels like a coffee table book for them too. So definitely a collector's edition.
I was going to say, it's also a great discussion point as well over the holidays when you've got family over, because we got the list here in the studio and we sat down and discussed it straight away. It's a great discussion point, I think, when you've got family coming over for Christmas or New Year's.
Tell me what you thought of it. It was like, obviously we chatted through Chris Lilly, but were there any others where you're like, oh, I didn't actually know about that person, or I'm surprised they made the list? Because this is one of my favourite things when we do lists like this, is the debate and the discussion and the disagreement that happens with in WhatsApp channels and social media comment threads. I love this stuff.
Yeah, there was one that I have to admit that I had to Google, and that was Kevin Parker.
From Tame Impala?
Yeah. I know Tame Impala, but I didn't know the name Kevin Parker. So once I Googled it and saw Tame Impala, I was like, yes, now I've got it. But yeah, that was the only name that I actually had to go and Google on the entire list.
I love that we let you know about that, because he's, obviously Tame Impala is such a huge artist that's been exported globally for us, but himself as a musician and producer has done some incredible work with some big name artists like Lady Gaga, and then most recently Dua Lipa as well. Definitely.
And how much debate do you get online with your readers once a list like this goes out? Because I know for us on our show, we'll talk about top 10 horror films or top 10 Australian actors, and then there's a huge debate online of you should have put this person in, or that person doesn't deserve to be there. Do you get much of that debate online as well?
Oh yeah, Twitter is where it's at right now, with a lot of people debating and discussing who's gone in. And honestly, I'm so here for it. I think that's what these lists are for. These lists are editorially picked through our Rolling Stone team and then a panel of experts, but it's not a popularity vote. It's not publicly voted. So there are going to be people in this list who people are learning about or not sure should make the list or feel shouldn't have made the list because another person was more deserving. And I think that is all part of the joy of creating a list like this.
I wonder if you'll get a celebrity out there who will actually comment and say, I should have been on that list.
No, I haven't had that yet. I mean, I did a radio chat with Ugly Phil, and he said that we missed putting him on the list, and I just, obviously, he was joking and being very funny, and I said, well, you made the honourable mentions in my mind, so, but no, we haven't had someone say, where's my edition? That's probably happening privately.
Awesome. Well, Poppy, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. It's been an absolute honour having you on the show, and I hope a lot of our listeners out there will go out and grab a copy of this Icons issue, because this is something that is an absolute must-have if you love pop culture, film, or even music in Australia. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us.
Thank you, and thank you for helping spotlight long-form print journalism. I am so here for this. Thank you so much.